Hello ladies and gentlemen and everyone watching. Today we'll be looking at the scariest movie monsters. Before we fully jump in, if you're new here, welcome, and if you're returning, it's good to see you again. Alright, let's get into it. Possum. Spider. Possum is a 2018 body and psychological horror movie, directed by Matthew Holmes, and it is one of the most disturbing, bleak while captivating films I've ever seen. It follows our main character Philip, as he's forced to move back into his childhood home, along with his uncle. His uncle is also his stepfather, because Philip's parents done got. In a fire too, I might add, which is a very painful and slow death. The reason for Philip to move back was because of his failed puppeteering career. And the reason for that career failing is because there was a child who went missing, and Philip, being a bit of an odd guy, can't relate to that, is the prime suspect. And throughout the movie, the police investigate the missing boy's case, all while Philip not only has to deal with the public's perception of him, but one of his puppets seemed to be more alive than what the eye can tell. And that puppet is utterly horrifying. The long spider-like legs with the uncanny face, it culminates in its terrifying movements shown in the movie. And one of my favorite things in horror movies of all time is when someone wakes up and there's something like right next to it, just laying in bed like, hey, how's it going? This movie does that a lot, and I love it every time. Possum is one of those movies that's up in the air for interpretation, all while painting out clues throughout the movie, but never fully answering what the fuck is happening in the hour-and-a-half runtime. So with that being said, I'm going to try to explain what I think the spider monster is. If you disagree at any point, then let me know, and also spoilers ahead, but it's not going to ruin the whole movie. Alright, so the movie is about abuse, more specifically sexual abuse of the main character, Philip, and all the effects that has on someone all throughout their life. You see, Philip was actually abused by his uncle, who took guardianship once Philip's parents died. And that spider puppet monster, Philip constantly carries around in some luggage. And I think the monster is much more of a psychological monster rather than actually existing in the real world. I'm sure that the puppet exists, but I don't think it's moving and doing all the things that it does on its own. I think that's all in Philip's head. But that monster is quite literally the trauma that Philip is carrying around. And yeah, Philip carrying luggage around, that's a bit too nail on the head for me, but I still enjoyed it if that is what the monster represents. The face of the spider itself is a representation of his uncle. The long legs are his fingertips when his uncle was grabbing him and doing things to him. And all throughout the movie, those long legs of the puppeteer constantly caress Philip. And whenever Philip tries to get rid of the spider, it always returns to him. But it constantly follows him and keeps an eye on him. And the fact that the spider is always keeping an eye on Philip represents Philip's trauma that he can't let go, so it's always in the back of his head, always watching him. Again, that's just my opinion. The movie gives you a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. Possum is so artistically beautiful, uncanny, and eerie. It does dive into heavier topics, as mentioned, and honestly, it can feel confusing at times because there's a lot of time cuts, and with that, it can also feel a bit slow. Yet, I'd argue that that adds to the unease of the movie. If you've seen Possum and you think the monster represents something else, then please let me know. And if you haven't seen it, then I highly suggest it. Aterrados. All of the creatures. Aterrados, or Terrified, is a 2017 Spanish supernatural horror. Directed by Damien Rugna, it follows multiple strange events, happening all in the same neighborhood, all with supernatural meddlings. And a doctor, her colleague, as well as an ex-police officer, begin to investigate the otherworldly misdoings. I think a good comparison is something like The Conjuring, where Ed and Lorraine are investigators of ghosts and they go in somewhere to investigate and beat up a ghost. Because that's what they definitely did. They didn't get me though. However, I would probably pick Terrified, and yes, I'm going with the English version, I'm a big dumb American. I think I would pick Terrified over The Conjuring. The events that occur at the beginning of the film, that have the paranormal misdoings, bring us to the terrifying monsters. Now those events in the beginning of the movie, those are multiple different people, and the latter half follows the investigators and brings the story full circle, while revealing unworldly monsters. And to me, the scariest monster shown throughout the movie is the guy under the bed. Oh my goodness, this behemoth of a being watches good old Walter as he sleeps. And although Walter fights back, like with a gun, it's to no avail. And I feel better, because I'm not the only one thrown off by this creature's appearance. Hey, look both ways. Now that nighttime creeper isn't the only baddie in the movie. we jump to a different story that isn't connected to Walter, where a mother lost her son, only to regain him. Kind of. As the movie progresses, those 3 investigators that I mentioned, they look into all these weird monster appearances, as well as like normal ghost activities, like things being pushed around. However, these creatures aren't paranormal or ghosts. And I'm about to spoil this movie, so if any of the clips or me just yapping about it has got you enticed, then I highly suggest going to watch this movie first before I start yapping. Just skip this part. You don't need to see this. It's a good twist, and I think it really makes the movie. And that twist is that these monsters that we see all throughout the movie, they're from an alternate dimension. And let's say that this is like the normal dimension. Walter can see these creatures, like right now that big guy is under the table, but only at certain angles. In the monster's reality, they found like a broken fence pretty much, where they could sneak through into this reality and just create havoc. I'm not gonna spoil the whole thing, but it's really worth the watch. It's such a breath of fresh air. And I know we've been eating really good in the horror genre, especially recently. Sometimes I feel like the food can taste the same. For a movie that set itself up as a ghost movie, Terrified kept it original all throughout before even revealing the twist. Splinter, The Fungus. Splinter is a 2008 horror sci-fi movie, directed by Toby Wilkins, and it's an underrated zombie flick. It follows a group of 4 isolated in a gas station, and the group contains a couple and some escaped convicts. Sounds like Thanksgiving to me. The 4 are surrounded by a zombie-like fungus, and they have to figure out ways to work together to survive. The plot's been done 1,000 times before. Hell, it's very reminiscent of Left 4 Dead. Yet Splinter goes above and beyond just a generic isolated zombie movie, especially for its budget. I'd say that Splinter is an indie movie, but you might not be able to tell, because the acting is quite believable and making you think that these 4, while there's definitely tension, because, you know, escaped convicts and just a normal couple, they have chemistry on trying to figure out how to survive, because they're forced to. But that chemistry and tension builds so well throughout the movie. And for a main cast of characters in a horror movie not to be a chore to watch, that's always respectable. The horror movie itself is fast-paced, and it gets to the scares pretty quickly. And finally, the zombies have a fun twist to them. Like if you're gonna do zombies, give it some sort of spice. And this movie does that. The zombies are ex-living things, infected by a splinter-like fungus that feeds off of blood.
Oh, sorry, I didn't...
And that fungus hunts people using heat. The film garnered multiple awards, including some for its practical effects, which is always a good thing in horror. And you can really see that within the movie monsters, aka the zombies. Yeah, I know they're zombies, they might be different from monsters. Whatever. Splinter's definitely worth a watch, although if you're going into it strictly for the monster, be aware that the movie might overuse the flashy editing just a bit. Also, if you have like problems with like lights flashing on really quickly, maybe skip this one. But the hour and like 15 minutes of runtime is well worth the short-paced movie. I'd say a lot of movies, especially recently, would do a lot better if they just shortened down the runtime. If you have seen Splinter, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I think this movie kind of got swept under the rug with all the other zombie movies that are out there. The Return of the Living Dead, Tarman. 1985's The Return of the Living Dead, directed by Dan O'Bannon, is a zombie comedy B-horror movie, and it has become a cult hit for multiple reasons, including innovative comedy, blended with a good mix of body horror, as well as a spin on zombies. And these zombies are utterly horrifying, enhanced by practical effects, but what makes the zombies so special in my opinion is that they're goofy while also extremely murderous and kind of smart. The movie follows 2 fellas who accidentally release a gas that brings the dead back to life. The dialogue in the movie is some of the funniest that you'll get out of a horror movie. However, one of the most famous elements of the movie is Tarman. Now you might be thinking that this guy is just covered in tar, but that's not the case. I think his origin is actually cooler than just being covered in hot, searing tar. Tarboy over here is actually a victim of a nuclear blast, and that blast melted his muscle, so that blackness you see on him, that's melted muscle. Yeah. I think Tarman is the embodiment of the goofiness of the movie, as well as the amazing practical effects that they use. Because although he's funny, he has some genuinely good scares in the movie. Besides his iconic looks that would have just put him on this list no matter what, he's also one of the first zombies in the series to show intelligence. Which I appreciate when zombies aren't beatable by doing something like this, where I'm just up higher so they can't get me. Like, I want a zombie to be able to jump and like nip at my toes. You know? If you're a horror fan, you've got to see Tarman in full.
we go.
Light this fucker up.
VHS Beyond, Stork, Brooders, and Dream Girl. That's right, baby, a trifecta. The VHS movie series is a group of anthology movies that are compiled into one long film. It's multiple short films from different directors and teams, and they explore all types of filmography and storytelling. The ideas can range from out of this world crazy to the horrors of men. Some of the short films are very reminiscent to like Call of Duty Zombies, while others resemble 80s horror to like sci-fi horror. It's one of my favorite horror movie series, especially in recent years. And speaking of recency, the most recent film is VHS Beyond. And I couldn't just pick one monster in here, because there's a couple of them who are really good. The first two of my picks are in the same short film, called Stork, directed by Jordan Downey. And you might know that name because of Thanksgiving.
Suck on my chainsaw,
Stork follows a police team, investigating the disappearance of multiple babies. 17 to be exact. That would really suck for like kids to go missing. The police team have an inkling of suspicion on where the babies might be, and they also have the information that the assailant guilty of the disappearances might not be of this world. And it's filmed by one of the police members, who's new to the job, so he only gets his camera. Now, something very popular in the VHS series is handheld footage, and we see that in Stork. The unit named Warden follows through on a lead, only to be met with these zombie-like humans, known as Brooders. And quite honestly, all the Brooders designs are really, really good, especially the chainsaw guy. But one Brooder really sticks out to me. Uh-oh. Yeah, this pajama-wearing Brooder, he doesn't have much screen time, but I just love his design so much. And the way he does his twitching, I think is a lot better than how Pennywise did it, because this Brooder just looks like it hurts to walk, like his bones are just cracking at every single step. And if that's the case, maybe don't hold on to a baby. Something I find kind of funny is the cops were just like, let's ignore him for now. Which, hey, I probably would have done the same. I probably would have left by now. Let God handle that, since he's handled so many of the other things that's gone wrong in this world. Although the cops ignore Jammies over there, they can't ignore that weird wheezing noise. If only we could figure out where it's coming from. You see why it's called Stork now? The Stork's design is so good, and it's practical. It's a mix between a giant costume and a huge puppet head. And I've said it once, and I'll say it again, it's always better when it's real. The reveal of the Stork is such a good payoff too, because all throughout the movie, we watch the cops gun down all of these Brooders, only for the Brooders to get back up after a couple of bullets. And even better, what the Stork does is it goes inside of the baby's head and just sucks out its innards. But the Stork goes and feeds not a human baby. It's so disgusting, and it's so good. Now, for the other monster in the movie that made this list, that will be Dream Girl. And spoilers, she's a robot, but she has a cool, nasty design, so we're gonna go with it. The short film itself is actually called Dream Girl. It's a foreign film, which is also a common occurrence for the VHS series. And it takes us to India. Directed by Virat Pal, it follows two fellas part of the paparazzi, who are tasked to film a Bollywood star. And they manage to do that by sneaking into her trailer. You know, as the paparazzi do, because they're so cool. But uh-oh, homeboy gets caught. And hey, for some reason her response is this.
I like your face.
Fellas, do not try that in real life. Do not do that. Don't do that. Don't follow her home at 3 a.m. to make sure she gets home safe. But anyway, things are looking really good for him. Yeah, so Tara's actually the Terminator. Well, a robot. Specifically made to be a Bollywood star. And her saying she likes your face, well, usually that's a good thing to hear from a lady. This isn't. This is more of like a Leatherface type situation. She goes completely haywire and massacres everyone on the set that she was on. Because you see, she was actually recording a Bollywood music video. And heads up, if you watch this, there's a whole like 3-minute song in it. It's a good song and it's choreographed well. But just heads up to all you horror fans out there. In Tara's hunt for her new face, she kills the two main leads that we were following throughout the movie. Her infatuation with skin is really what put her on this list. Because I love body horror, and especially when something happens to the skin, it's just nasty. Because like, I don't want this to rip. Look at this beautiful face. Can't have anything happen to Moneymaker. My one gripe with the short film Dream Girl is I wish that we just saw the kills more rather than the flashing edits that so many horror movies do. But the reason they do that is because of lower budget, and I understand that that can help. So really no complaints on this side.
Do you want a selfie?
And that was some of the scariest horror movie monsters. If you liked the video at any point, then leave me one before you leave. Really helps out. It helps the channel grow and it just makes me smile. And if you enjoyed this video, this is actually the third video I've done about movie monsters. I should have one here linked at the end. If you like this video enough, maybe think about subscribing. And yeah, I think that's enough talking. See you next week. Bye.